Welcome back. Turnpike to Turnpike Fantasy Football 2013. I'm League Commissioner Kevin Mabula, and this is the Week 11 preview show. And I say that with great joy because this season is almost over. I was teased there for a little bit. I thought maybe there was a chance I could get back in it, but it's not going to happen. But the one thing that did happen is I proved all of you wrong about this Kevin Kiss of Death. Last week I picked 6 games and I won 5 of 6. My apologies to Jeffrey Hezekiah Goldenbaum and his Hamilton Square Possums. I apologize for your loss. Other than that, every one of you that I picked to win actually won. So let's take a look at last week's, and let's start off with what basically sealed my fate for the season when my Warriors of Babylon took on Jeff Saminsky's Paper Tiger. I lost this one 123 to 110. Jeff got 26 points out of his stolen receiver, Deshaun Jackson, his brilliantly plucked off the waiver wire tight end of Julius Thomas, and 20 points out of his quarterback, Matt Stafford. Where I got 31 points out of Riley Cooper, 14 points out of DeMarco Murray, and 15 points out of Andre Johnson. And like I said, that loss pretty much seals my fate. I'm pretty much out of it. But with that win, Jeff moves to number 1 in the standings. That's what a completely fleeced team should look like. A team that you plucked people from other rosters without them even caring about what was happening. I'm talking to you, Matt Dreyfus. I'm talking to you, Anthony Parisi. Robbed. Next year at the draft, we're going to put Jeff Saminsky in handcuffs and keep him in like a little a one-on-one box, what do they call it, solitary confinement. Now it's all good, and I'm just busting on Jeff. I wish that I thought of it, to be honest with you. So Jeff, good job. Nice way to run to the top of the seeds. Up next, we've got Mr. Bonds, Eastfall Jedi, taking on Woodbury Wankers, and as I predicted, Mr. Bonds, Eastfall Jedi won this one, 133 to 77. Mike got 33 points out of Demaryius Thomas. He got 32 points out of his quarterback, Nick Foles, and 25 points out of a really good spot start in Kenny Stills of the Saints. Where Anthony got 18 points out of his Oakland Raiders defense, and you know anytime your defense leads your team in scoring, you're not going to do well that week. He also got 15 points out of Reggie Bush and 12 out of Ben Roethlisberger because his stud Tom Brady was on a bye. And in a really great game from last week, John Moore bounced back in a big way and won against the aforementioned Hezekiah Goldenbaum. He won this one as the Downingtown Destroyers. My only loss last week, I picked the Possums. John won this one 134 to 84. John got 20 points out of LaShawn McCoy, 21 points out of Golden Tate, and 18 points out of T.Y. Hilton. Also 19 points out of Stephen Hauschka as kicker. Very solid all-around game. To rack up 134 points and have your high scorer as 21, you know your whole team did pretty well that week. Where Mr. Hezekiah got 84 points. He got 26 points out of his quarterback, Russell Wilson, 22 points out of Pierre Thomas, and 10 points out of his Broncos defense. And in a game that I called properly last week, where a lot of you all were probably scratching your heads, Matt Dreyfus' Fishtown off in the corner beat Greg Long's Get Work Done, and this was a beating, 115 to 69. Matt got 38 points out of A.J. Green, 22 points out of the returning Andre Brown for the Giants, and 16 points out of the Arizona Cardinals defense. Where Greg got 39 points out of Peyton Manning, and not much from anybody else. 10 points out of Noshawn Marino, 8 points out of his Packers defense. And up next we've got Bob Crane's Julio Jones, who I chose to win, taking on Deputy Commissioner Chris Long's Asgardian Thunder Gods, and Bobby wins this one 88 to 70. You know, during the week I got an email from Chris saying that this is probably the worst fantasy starting roster he's ever had due to bye weeks and injuries and everything, and scoring 70 points this past week probably cements that fact. Bob did get 44 points out of Drew Brees, 20 points out of Calvin Johnson, and 10 points out of D'Angelo Williams. where Chris got 20 points out of his Ravens defense, 19 points out of Andrew Luck, and 14 points out of Giovanni Bernard. And in our last matchup from last week, and really a playoff preview possibly, we had Kenny Long's Gladiators taking on 1 gram equals a pound. And Kenny wins this 109-96. This is what happens when that luxury tight end doesn't score for you, Brian. But it's okay because you're still up there at the top of the standings, just below Mr. Szymanski. Greg, you got 30 points out of Brandon Marshall, 19 points out of Adrian Peterson, and 15 points out of Christian Ponder. More on that in one quick second. Where Brian got 26 points out of Marshawn Lynch, 22 points out of Pierre Garçon, and 14 points out of Phillip Rivers. Now, Kenny, you more than anybody have been bit by some injuries. Actually, your brother too, with Arian Foster going down. But this whole thing with Aaron Rodgers, and then you plug in another quarterback in Christian Ponder, and then he goes down in the game. I heard your father offer you some advice to figure out a better quarterback answer for yourself than Ponder. Who knows who you're going to go after? I know that a lot of people are probably going to be going after waiver wire quarterbacks this week. I know I am. I don't have a quarterback this week. I'm down all my Dallas Cowboys, which really is, what does that mean, really, in the sense? So let's get to this segment that everybody loves, and that is Ask Bobby C. Thank you, Anthony. This week's question comes from Mike Goodson of the New York Jets, and this was a rather interesting question because it was very random. Dear Bobby C, I have some random questions that I feel need your wisdom applied to them. Tighty whities or boxers? Why is the sky blue? Why do you park in the driveway and drive in the parkway? Will the Jets ever be competitive again? Why is it wrong to carry a loaded, non-registered handgun in New Jersey with hollow point bullets in it? Your good friend, Mike Goodson. Well, let's take it real quick and see what Bobby had to say about this. Answers are in yellow. Tighty whities or boxers? A good fantasy coach always wears boxers. I haven't worn tighty whities since the 1990s. Why is the sky blue? Ask NASA. I'm not really sure that would be the right people to go to, but why do you park in a driveway and drive in a parkway? You should ask Brian Sheehan that question when he is drunk. Will the Jets ever be competitive again? Yes, as long as they keep Ryan and get some weapons for Geno Smith, things are looking good for Gang Green. Highly doubtful. First of all, that coach sucks. He's a clown. And lastly, why is it wrong to carry a loaded, non-registered handgun in New Jersey with hollow point bullets in New Jersey? You'll have to ask my attorney. I plead the fifth. Then Bob also up top said, thanks again for your short contribution on the 1.2 games played this year before you took a knee. I guess while you have time on your hands, you can go to the shooting range. I would answer your questions. Okay, whatever, Bob. This is really a lame segment this season. Only a couple more left, thankfully. Let's look ahead to next week's matchup, kids, and see who's going to get the kiss of death. So guys, thankfully, this season is coming to a close. We've got 2 more weeks of the regular season, and 3 more weeks of the playoffs, and then it's over. Then it's Christmas and holidays and real football playoffs. I don't even want to talk about the 49ers these days. I don't know what's going on with that team. But I'm thankful that this season's coming to an end. I do have somebody I'm rooting for hard this year. I'm not going to say who it is because then all of a sudden that person's going to be cursed. But the person I am rooting for, who I will reveal at the end of the year, is in playoff contention right now. That's all I'm saying. So, why don't we get to next week's matchups? First up, we've got a clash of titans once again when my Warriors of Babylon take on Anthony Parisi's Woodbury Wankers. As I said earlier, my bye weeks are hitting me big time this week, so this is probably going to be another loss this time to Anthony. And this one, you want to see the freak out, it might happen next week. So stay tuned for next week's video. And then in a matchup that really has a lot of playoff implications, we're talking about Get Work Done taking on Paper Tiger. Jeff Szyminski's team taking on Greg Long's. Now, Greg, you've been up there pretty much in the top 1 or 2 spots the entire season. Jeff all of a sudden is up there. You're all chasing him, along with Brian Sheehan. So it should be a great matchup to see what happens there. Deputy Commissioner Chris Long's Asgardian Thunder Gods, who's chasing a playoff spot right now, is taking on Mike Bond, who is not chasing a playoff spot, Eastfall Jedi. He is, like me and Anthony, out of the playoff picture totally. So Chris needs to make up some ground here. Another email I got from him this week said how he's doing a fantastic job of coaching himself out of a playoff spot. So we shall see if that trend continues this week. Now, this one is going to be fun. Matt Dreyfus's Fishtown Off in the Corner, sit at 6-4, is taking on Mr. Brian Sheehan's 1 gram equals a pound. Very, very big matchup for playoffs. Both teams should make them, but this is going to be jockeying for position. Remember, the top 2 seeds get a first round bye. Downingtown Destroyers, John Moore's team, taking on Bob Crane's Julius Jones. Now, Bob and John both have an outside shot at making the playoffs. One team probably will. This game will go a long way of determining who that's going to be. And in the last match of this coming week, we've got the Hamilton Square Possums taking on the Gladiators, Kenny Long's team. Another game with big playoff implications for Kenny. Jeff, I think your loss last week probably did you in, but we shall see. Now, you didn't hear me make picks because I'm going to do it right now. Ready? Let's do a tally. My matchup with Anthony Parisi, I pick the Woodbury Wankers. No Grim Reaper this week, just giving it to you because we know the Kiss of Death does not exist anymore. I have proven it to be a fact. There's no such thing as the Kiss of Death. Anthony, I'm picking you. Guess what? Congratulations. You're going to win this week. Out of Get Work Done and the Paper Tiger. Let me take a quick peek. Let me look at bye weeks and what we've got going on. Looks like we've got some pretty healthy teams. I am going to go with Jeff Szyminski's Paper Tiger. Up next, we've got Chris Long's Asgardian Thunder Gods taking on Eastfall Jedi. I am going to go with, are you ready for this one? The Eastfall Jedi. Woo! What? What did he say? Yeah, you heard me right. Eastfall Jedi taking Chris Long out of the playoff picture. That's what I think, anyway. Mr. Brian Sheehan's 1 gram equals pound taking on Matt Dreyfus off in the corner. I am going to go with 1 gram equals a pound because I think that luxury tight end of his actually will have a big week this week against the 49er defense. It's going to be brutal. Downingtown Destroyers taking on Julius Jones. John Moore taking on Bob Crane. I am really liking this week John Moore and the Downingtown Destroyers. And then the last one, Jeff Arai, Hezzy Howie, Golden Bombs, Hamilton Square Possums taking on Kenny Long's Gladiators. I like the Possums. All right, guys. Let's see how we do this week. No worries. That's my picks for this week. All right, guys. One more regular season week after this. God. Thank God. I'm League Commissioner Kevin Babula. Bye.